Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. And don't forget to listen to the end of the story, guys, to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. Growing up, my stepsister and I had a complicated relationship, to say the least. My father had been married to her mother before I was born, and their marriage had ended in a scandalous and tragic manner. My stepsister's mother had been unfaithful, and my father only discovered her infidelity after she gave birth. When my stepsister was just 2 months old, my father grew suspicious and conducted a paternity test, which confirmed that he was not her biological father. Hurt and betrayed, my father filed for divorce. However, fate intervened in the cruelest way possible. During the divorce proceedings, my stepsister's mother and her affair partner died in a car accident. My father, despite everything, could not abandon an innocent child. He had a heart far too big to leave her to the system, so he raised her as his own. He provided for her, gave her love, and never once treated her differently from how he would have treated his own child. But no matter what he did, she always seemed to struggle with a deep-rooted resentment and insecurity about her place in our family. 3 years after the tragic accident, my father met my mother, and they married soon after. By the time my stepsister was 7, I was born. From the very start, she resented me. Perhaps she always felt like I had what she never did, a family built on love and stability. She had no true connection to my father by blood, and I suspect she felt like an outsider in our family, despite she was never treated like one. Though my father loved her and never treated her any differently than he treated me, she always carried the weight of being a reminder of her mother's betrayal. My mother also tried to bond with her, treating her with kindness and care, but my stepsister never fully accepted her. As we grew up, the tension between us never truly faded. While I was fortunate to inherit my mother's delicate features and slim frame, which people often complimented, my stepsister struggled with body image issues. She battled with her weight, cycling through unhealthy dieting habits and developing an eating disorder in her late teens. No matter how much support my parents offered her, she never truly overcame her insecurities. I could see the way she compared herself to me, the way her eyes darkened when someone praised me. No matter how much I tried to be kind, she saw me as a reminder of everything she felt she lacked. She constantly accused me of being the perfect one in our father's eyes, even though my father always assured her that he loved us both equally. When she was 14, my father finally told her the truth about her biological parents. He didn't want to lie to her, and he believed she deserved to know where she came from. Instead of finding closure, however, she found a new reason to resent me. She became even more distant. It was as if knowing the truth cemented her belief that she didn't belong in our family. She lashed out at me, making passive-aggressive comments about how I was the real daughter, while she was just the girl my father felt obligated to keep. No matter how much I tried to reassure her, it was never enough. She grew colder toward my mother and frequently claimed that she had been robbed of the life she would have had if her biological parents had survived. For years, she dreamt of one thing: marrying rich. She believed that wealth and status would be her salvation, that it would finally make her feel worthy. She became obsessed with the idea of living a luxurious lifestyle, constantly talking about designer brands, exclusive parties, and extravagant vacations. When she met her fiancé, it seemed like all her dreams had come true. He was everything she dreamt of: wealthy, handsome, and devoted to her. He treated her like a queen, and, surprisingly, treated me like a little sister. I liked him instantly, and he seemed genuinely kind. However, my stepsister loathed our easy bond. Even though I never gave her fiancé any reason to be concerned, she viewed my mere existence as a threat. She gritted her teeth and played nice in front of him, but I could tell she hated that he enjoyed my company. When he proposed to her, it was with a massive diamond ring. She proudly flaunted it, constantly showing it off and talking about how it was the biggest diamond among her friends. I truly hoped that this was her chance to be happy, that she could finally let go of the past and focus on the beautiful future ahead of her. But she just couldn't stand me. No matter how much she had, she always believed I had more. On her wedding day, everything was perfect, so extravagant and luxurious, just as she had always dreamed. The venue was breathtaking, with cascading floral arrangements, crystal chandeliers, and a live orchestra. She wore a breathtaking gown, accessorized in a $20,000 diamond tiara, a gift from her fiancé. For most of the wedding, she played the perfect bride, smiling and basking in the attention. But as the night drew to a close and the reception wound down, she dropped a bombshell. She suddenly accused me, loudly and dramatically, of stealing her diamond tiara. The music stopped, guests turned to stare, and I stood there, utterly dumbfounded. She launched into a full-blown scene, tears streaming down her face as she screamed about how I had been jealous of her my entire life, and that she always knew I wanted what she had. I was stunned, unable to process how she could possibly think I would do such a thing. The guests, including her new in-laws, looked at me with suspicion. I tried to reason with her, to insist that I had done no such thing, but she wouldn't listen. She said I was jealous of her happiness and decided to ruin her perfect day. She demanded that my belongings be searched, that I return her precious tiara immediately. My father tried to intervene, but she was relentless, playing the victim in front of everyone. She ordered security to search my belongings. I was in shock as they began rummaging through my things, but what happened next left me speechless. They found the tiara hidden in my car. I was absolutely devastated. I kept insisting that I hadn't taken it, that someone must have put it there. But the damage was done. The moment the security held up the tiara, the whispers began. Guests looked at me like I was a thief, like my stepsister had been right about me all along. She cried, playing the victim, claiming that she had always known I was jealous of her success and her big day. I was crushed. My father tried to defend me, but even he looked unsure. I could see the judgment in the eyes of her in-laws, my relatives, and even some of my friends. It was humiliating. Then, just as I was on the verge of breaking down, I looked up and saw that the venue had CCTV cameras. Turning to her new husband, I suggested we check the footage. The color drained from my stepsister's face. She protested, saying that it wasn't necessary, as the tiara was already found, and that she just wanted her tiara back. But by then, her fiancé was already speaking to the venue staff. The footage was played for all to see, and oh, what a revelation it was. There she was, sneaking off to my car and carefully placing her tiara inside. The gasps from the guests were deafening. Her new husband looked absolutely mortified. She stammered, trying to explain, claiming she had been tipsy and didn't remember. But it was too late. She had humiliated herself in front of everyone. And worse, she had destroyed her own marriage on the very day it had begun. Her husband was furious. He couldn't believe that she had pulled such a stunt, all because of her petty jealousy. It was one thing to be insecure, but to publicly humiliate her own sister on the biggest day of her life? He realized then and there that he had married the wrong woman. The next morning, he informed her that he was filing for divorce. Now my stepsister is blaming me for everything. She insists that if I hadn't suggested checking the security footage, she would have explained things away. She claims that she was drunk and wasn't thinking straight, that it was all just a misunderstanding. But I don't buy it. I know my stepsister. This wasn't an accident. This was years of resentment and bitterness boiling over. Now she's left with nothing but her own actions to blame. And honestly, for the first time in my life, I don't feel bad for her. So, Reddit. Am I the a-hole for exposing my stepsister on her wedding day? OP's stepsister spent years hating OP, brewing resentment, and instead of focusing on her new marriage and happiness, she went out of her way to publicly humiliate OP. The absolute karma of her getting caught on camera planting the tiara in OP's car is just chef's kiss. Mwah! She was willing to destroy OP's reputation just to make herself feel superior for once in her life. And now she's shocked that her husband wants nothing to do with her? Actions have consequences. OP didn't ruin her marriage. She did all that on her own. OP needs to stay far, far away from her because she's proven she has no problem throwing OP under the bus. And now let's hear the community's opinion. This is textbook narcissistic behavior. Your stepsister wanted to be the star of the show, but her insecurities wouldn't let her just enjoy her wedding. She had to make sure you were put down in the process. The way she orchestrated this whole thing Playing the victim while turning everyone against you just chills me to the core. What's even more disgusting is how easily people believed her. Security found the tiara in your car, and suddenly you were guilty without question? No one even considered the possibility that she could be lying. That must have been so humiliating. I'm glad you remembered the security cameras because otherwise, her lies would have followed you forever. Not the a-hole, and I hope you go no contact with her. First of all, I'm so sorry you had to go through this. I had a toxic sister who was exactly like this. Jealous, bitter, always looking for ways to make me the bad guy. No matter how much you try to be the bigger person, people like this will always find a reason to hate you. Your stepsister showed her true colors. She would rather ruin your life than just focus on her own happiness. Her husband saw that immediately, and now she has no one to blame but herself. I wouldn't be surprised if she tries to twist this into some sob story about how you ruined her life. Cut her off, block her, and never look back. Not the a-hole. So let me get this straight. She had the perfect wedding, married her dream man, got everything she ever wanted, and she still decided, you know what? Let me commit self-sabotage real quick. Honestly, the level of pettiness is almost impressive. The fact that she had the audacity to act like she was so hurt while literally planting evidence in your car is next-level villain behavior. And then she had the nerve to act shocked when her husband wanted out? I hope you popped some popcorn and enjoyed the fallout, because she 100% did this to herself. Not the a-hole. Let her deal with the consequences of her own choices.
I, 54 female, have 4 kids. Milo, 27 male. Dylan, 25 male. Sean, 22 male. And Tanya, 18 female. Milo and Dylan are married. Milo's wife, Olivia, 26 female, married my son 3 years ago, while Dylan's wife, Allison, 27 female, married my son last year. I will be completely honest. I don't like Olivia, and she doesn't like me either. I don't like how she behaves, how she dresses, and how she looks, and how she has called me Snoopy and controlling, because I care for my son and visit him regularly. They're child-free, and while I understand that it was my son's choice too, I know that it was because Olivia refused to lose her body over a man or a baby, which for me was completely egotistical and selfish. If my son is not in the house, she doesn't open the door. Mind you, my son bought that house alone. She says that since we don't have a relationship, I don't need to be there if my son's not there, and what's worse, he agrees. She's only close with my husband, which is totally inappropriate, and I don't like it. Allison is totally different. We're close. We share a lot of interests, and she does try to have a relationship with me. She's super sweet and caring. She's appropriate, and we can spend hours and hours together watching series, knitting, or cooking and having fun. Now, my husband's family has a beautiful ring that has been passed down for at least 200 years. It is supposed to go to the wife of the first son during their 5th anniversary. That's why it's mine. It's emotionally and monetarily invaluable. I know it's supposed to go to Olivia, but she doesn't deserve it. She doesn't even know about it. And I think it's my right to give it to Allison, since she's also the wife of one of my sons and will have children to pass it down. I made the mistake of commenting about it with my husband, and he went incredibly mad. He said that the ring belongs to his family, and it should be Olivia's, whether I like her or not. I tried to talk some sense into him, but he reminded me that while Olivia might not know about the ring, Milo does, and he'll be expecting the ring in 2 years. I said that we could offer to buy another ring for him, but he said no and called me an a-hole. He said that if I don't give it to her, he will, since he has all the papers and legally, the ring is his. Am I the a-hole? I think it's totally reasonable that the ring goes to Allison, because she's still the wife of one of my sons. You're the a-hole. I started reading this and got really angry. You are so awful and judgmental of your daughter-in-law. You need to get over yourself. You visit them regularly to what? Check on how clean the house is? That if Milo is fed? Do everyone a favor. Stop picking favorites. It won't end well, and find yourself a hobby. What I read. My firstborn is married to an objectively gorgeous woman, and I can't handle losing my precious son to a woman who is confident in her skin and isn't afraid to show it. My second son is married to a more plain Jane type, who isn't threatening me and doesn't make me jealous. So am I the a-hole for wanting to break a 200-year-old family tradition of my husband's because I'm a grown adult who is jealous of my son's wife? Yes, lady, you're the a-hole. You're the a-hole. I agree with your husband. The ring is a family heirloom from his side of the family, so if he wants Olivia to get the ring, then she should get the ring. Not fair for you to switch things up because you don't get along with her. Seems like you're the only one who has an issue with her. My son has 2 children, 4 and 2, and his wife took some time off to be a stay-at-home mom. She's been trying to return to the workforce for a while now, and she finally got an offer in her field. The earliest she can get the kids into daycare is a week after when they want her to start, and they asked me to watch the children for a week. With their commutes, it would be about 9 hours a day of childcare. I probably would have done it for my other son, but watching these children comes with so many rules. They are vegetarian and on a strict diet, and last time I watched them, food was not provided. Daughter-in-law is very strict about language. The TV isn't allowed to be on. I don't even watch TV, but I had to put that in there because I found it so rude. She wants the 4-year-old to do some enrichment worksheets that I would be expected to do. There was a very strict schedule. I do understand naps, but I think the rest of it is too much when I would be doing them a favor. The biggest issue is I wouldn't be able to have anyone at the house while they were there. I see my friends almost every day, and if I'm providing 9 hours of childcare, I'm not going to be one-on-one with the kids the entire time. She thinks my friends are bad people, and she is very strict about the influences on her kids. I told my son that it's way too much to ask of anyone, and they need to find a professional. He begged me to reconsider, but I really don't want to, and daughter-in-law called crying the other night about how important this job is to her. Not the a-hole. I'm so sick of people treating grandparents like free childcare. They're just kids, and it's okay if the rules slide for a week. That's why kids love going to their grandparents. I think you should make it clear that you'd absolutely love to take them if daughter-in-law is willing to compromise. But if she won't budge, then that's not on you. She can find someone else to be a boot camp instructor. You're the a-hole. People love to say you're not obligated to do XYZ, which I agree with to some extent. But realistically, that's not how the world works. But anyway, from the title, I thought you were going to say you've been asked to look after them full time, but you've been asked to help for a week. Yes, okay, the rules are a bit much, but you'd rather your daughter-in-law not get this job to support the family because it would inconvenience you for 5 whole days? Do the right thing and help your son and daughter-in-law out. I'm going with everyone sucks here. If they're that desperate for a sitter, they should be more lenient for the time being. But also, what grandma follows all of those rules? The food one, yes, sure, absolutely. But most of the times grandpa's house, is when the kids get to do whatever they want, even if the parent has rules, from my experience. It's only for a week, and her getting this job could exponentially set their family up financially to be able to breathe a little and not worry about expenses constantly. My son married my daughter-in-law, who was diagnosed with a progressive disease after 2 years of marriage. When her health deteriorated, my daughter-in-law became more disabled faster than her doctors or she expected. There were many hospitalizations, and eventually she became bedridden and dependent for everything on my son and caregivers. My husband and I helped with care and money. She died a little over a year ago after they'd been married for almost a decade. I'm very proud of my son for how he lived up to his vows. I'm very sorry that my daughter-in-law had a short life, and there were times we were close and I loved her, but I'm just going to say flat out that she could be a difficult person. When we met her, she was nice and brought a lot of fun to my son's life. But as time went on, she became sometimes cruel and angry, and I'm sure her poor health and depression affected that. She refused to get therapy. She lashed out at my son sometimes. When she died, my son told me he felt guilty because he cried because the burden was gone. Her parents have a lot more money than my son or we do. They paid for a very expensive wedding with hundreds of their friends and acquaintances, but over the whole time of her illness, only gave about $2,000, and that was in birthday and Christmas presents. My son asked them to contribute more once, but they refused. My son stayed at a job he didn't like because the health benefits were good, and he made good money instead of pursuing his dreams. Her parents never spent any time helping her physically, and very little with her at all. Her mother told me it was too depressing. They were traveling and had a lot of social engagements. My husband and I are putting off retirement because of the money we gave to help the children. When my daughter-in-law was dying, we called them on their vacation, and they didn't come back until 2 days after she died. Outside of the funeral, I only saw them once at the grocery store, which is where I lost it. They said hello to me and explained to a couple they were with who I was. The way they talked, it felt like they were glorying in being the bereaved parents to an audience. They kept talking, even to the checker, soaking up the sympathy. It was so fake, I thought. I exploded and told them off. I called them crappy people. I think I mentioned every time they acted badly to my son and daughter-in-law. I called them crapheads and a lot of other swear words I don't use. I followed them out to their car shouting until they drove away. I kept yelling crappy people. I have never acted like that before. I'm too embarrassed to go back to that store. I don't feel like I'm an a-hole, but maybe I should feel that way. They did lose their only child, and I can't see in their hearts. And I was thinking about the money, and not just about how they hurt their daughter by not being there for her. I also think I really scared the couple they were with. I could tell they thought I was deranged. I keep hoping to see them again so I can verbally attack them. I know that would make me an a-hole, but I still think about it. Not the a-hole. Sorry, but you lashed out where your son couldn't. You were in mama bear mode for your son and his deceased wife. You lashed out for the loss of her physical life, but also the effect it had on your son and him having to move on with this experience in his soul. I say leave them alone and continue to be there for your son. Not the a-hole, not the a-hole, not the a-hole. You and your husband are saints for taking care of their dying daughter. They went on a ducking vacation while she was dying and want to milk up the sympathy. Duck them. To be honest, I would have lashed out as well. You are 1,000% not the a-hole. They are. Not going to pass a judgment here, because your feelings are justified. Do I think the public outbursts are totally great? Probably not. Do I think that chasing them to their car was totally great? Not so much. Are they crappy people? Absolutely. Do they deserve to be told that? Absolutely. My Uncle Nick was married to my Aunt Lana until her death 7 years ago. They were married before I was even born, so I grew up with her. I was 15 when she died. My cousins, their kids, were 8, 7, and 5. My whole family adored Lana as though she was biologically one of us. They had known her most, if not all, of her life. My uncle met his second wife, Janet, 4 years ago. They started dating a few months later, and they got married 2 years ago. Janet has struggled with the fact Aunt Lana is still remembered by the family. We still mark the anniversary of her passing. We remember her birthday and leave stuff on her grave. My cousins talk about her a lot. They say how they wish she was still here. It's not that we dedicate our whole lives to it, but when someone brings up family photos, she's in many of them. Same with old family videos. She was also responsible for the flower garden in my grandparents' house, and there are a lot of memories of her. Janet has asked my parents and grandparents why we feel the need to remember Aunt Lana as though she were their daughter, sister, instead of Nick's wife. Once she grumbled that my youngest cousin spent his art class making something for his mom's grave for Mother's Day instead of making her something. She has asked my parents and grandparents to take down the old family photos that include Lana. It was at my cousin's birthday party a couple of weeks ago, where both sets of his grandparents were posing for a photo, and he had brought up to his mom that Janet started grumbling and sulking that she had come up. I asked her if she was okay, and she said she hated mentions of that woman, that she had never seen in-laws as fond of a late daughter-in-law before that they actually mourn her passing after so long. She said she had figured she would have stepped into her place by now. I told her she needed to understand that Aunt Lana was part of her history, was a big part of mine, and that she was always going to be part of our family and someone we loved. I told her we could love both of them, but as long as she competes with my aunt, she won't ever be able to get close to us, because she never tries to hide her feelings, and we can't just act like someone we love didn't exist. She had a tantrum where she called me an insensitive bee. She told me I should have been dropping to my knees and apologizing for making her feel less than, but instead tell her that she has no right to expect her place in the family to be put before a dead woman. I was shocked, as were the rest of the family who were very unhappy with her, especially Uncle Nick. But I do feel kind of bad. Am I the a-hole? Yo, what? She got mad because your cousin made something for their mother's grave? Not the a-hole. If you compete with the dead, even more so when they were well loved when they were alive, you're gonna lose, hands down. I think it speaks volumes that you left that disagreement feeling bad, and she left it feeling angry. She sounds bitter and insecure. That's not on you or your family. That's a her thing. I always taught my kids that you can never have too much love in your life. That goes for people that have died as well. You'll never forget them, nor stop loving them. Clearly, no one ever taught your aunt that lesson. I feel bad for your cousins. You're clearly not the a-hole, and I hope she gets some clarity. Not the a-hole. She passed away. It's not like she abandoned them. Also, the fact that your family remembers her so fondly says a great deal of her as a beautiful person. Why should that person go into oblivion? It wouldn't be fair to her or her kids who want to remember her. This new wife should create her own space in the family, but being petty won't help at all. My daughter-in-law is a very interesting person, to say the least. I don't really like her, but if she makes my son happy, I'm happy. I try to be civil most of the time. 3 months ago, they asked to move in due to financial issues. I said yes because I thought it would be for like a month at most. 3 months later and they're still here. Yesterday I went into the kitchen to make some lunch, and my daughter-in-law and son were there and told me to leave till she was done. I told them no, and not to tell me what to do in my own house. Daughter-in-law then started to scream random stuff and told me to leave again. I looked at my son and told him to calm his wife down, and he said, "Mom, we were here first. Can you leave till we're done cooking?" At this point, it wasn't even about the kitchen, more about the fact they were giving me orders in a home they don't pay for. I calmly said, "Okay, finish cooking, then get your stuff and leave." They started whining and saying how I'm a bad person and they're going to be homeless. I told them they should have thought about that before giving me orders. They left and are staying God knows where. I feel bad, but I was getting to my breaking point. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. They were not good house guests. They should respect your home and your rules and be grateful they could live there rent-free. Instead, they were rude and acted like you were inconveniencing them instead of the other way around. Lesson learned. Always discuss an end date first. If you feel really bad, you can invite them back in, but under the condition of the rules you set. Rule 1 being that this is your home and they do not order you around in your home. Not the a-hole. I think that if you let family members stay over, it is not a big deal to let them have the kitchen for themselves if they needed it. I know I don't like my boyfriend in my way when I cook. It is harder to move around. One could have agreed ahead of time when they need it, but they become a-holes for yelling at you. This was uncalled for. I also assume you making a sandwich wouldn't really take up too much space from their cooking. Depends on how big the kitchen is. But even if you are not an a-hole, you exaggerated big time. They're your family. Kicking them out over an argument so they live God knows where was probably a bit too much. Discussing it like adults so it never happens again, and they know to respect your home, could have been a better solution. Not the a-hole. I'll be damned if I give orders where I don't pay bills, or my name is not on the mortgage. Plus, raising your voice on your mother-in-law in her own home? When she's trying to access the food she paid for in the fridge she pays electricity for, in the kitchen she furnished, in the home she pays for. Pipe down, like all the way down. Why couldn't you both use the kitchen? You didn't throw them out to prepare your lunch, so what was the big deal?